When men divorce and they are the custodial parents, they often remarry very quickly. That's also based on the numbers. So it shows you that even when they do gain custody, they quickly want to replace the woman with another woman to take care of the child. So that is something that we see based on the actual numbers. I keep asking, we can give context and you could say, oh, the men are agreeing that the woman should have it and they just want to concede. But also I could say on the other side, they just wanted to throw their kids away and start new families. So when we're sitting here speaking about what Mott has asked me, he asked me a question, I answered the question. I don't think there's anything that it went over my head or I misunderstood. The fact of the matter, he asked me a question, I answered it. So let's keep it there. If you'd like to ask me another question, Darwin, go ahead and ask me another question that will evolve this conversation, and not make it reductive.
So the statistic that you wanted us to dispute with an additional statistic, does that statistic compensate for the possibility or the potential that the men that is on the record in that data conceded to not have a dispute with the mother of the child for the sake of maintaining some type of peace and refraining from having a child dangling in and out of the courtrooms?
That's very much a possibility if there were context given to that. But what we know, just simply based on what we understand, is that men agree that women should be the custodial parents. When men divorce and they are the custodial parents, they often remarry very quickly. That's also based on the numbers. So it shows you that even when they do gain custody, they quickly want to replace the woman with another woman to take care of the child. So that is something that we see based on the actual numbers. I keep asking, we can give context and you could say, oh, the men are agreeing that the woman should have it and they just want to concede. But also I could say on the other side, they just wanted to throw their kids away and start new families.
Real quick, if I can add something, I think you painted that narrative, and I don't think that that's actually very valid. And I looked it up just to try to maybe potentially disprove your point. You're right. It's actually 90% most of the time they do not go to court or go to trial. So you're correct. But under the context of the law, it said it's on par with people who actually come under some level of judicial processing, and they are typically pushed towards avoiding trial, mainly because of cost and the fact that it stacks against them based on what would have to play out in favor based on lack of evidence, so on and so forth. So they said it parallels that same thing, that typically there is no statistic that states that men overwhelmingly endorse that the woman is a better parent. They both decide that for the sake of the children or the sake of their circumstances, because abuse is typically on the line or some
or even child support might be on the line.
Yeah, so they decide that for their union, it's just better for them to maybe, allow that to be the case in agreements of the fact that they work out their own terms. There's nothing that you can find that will state what you specifically said, that men are just throwing.
Actually, everything I stated I did not say men are just doing. I said the majority, you conflated two stats that I said. I said on one side, the majority of custodial cases are settled outside of court.
Fact.
And then I said on the other side, men agree above 50%. So I'm not talking about the 90. I'm saying majority. Agree on average that the woman should have physical custody. Those are two different stats. Y'all are mushing them together. So I want to make it clear that I'm speaking on two different things.
Or what Mont introduced is the fact that you introduced the stat, but you left context out. Because I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying is actually
right. But you're adding in context you can't prove. It's just what you think. I'm not adding context.
You also can't disprove it either.
But I was just removing the context you added. That's what I was doing.
What is the context I added? Where is it?
Because you were saying that and I wish I could go back and get the exact words.
Let me try to give her a different scenario so she
No, hold on. Please let Mott finish. I wanted to hear his thought.
Yeah, I wish I wrote down exactly what you said, right? Because it was a little bit more than just men and women happen to agree most of the time that the woman should have the kids. Um, my point was that you were trying to make it out that men think that women should have the kids more often, right? That's what you were trying to. That's if we replay it, you were, and I don't know if any of the women feel like they heard it either, but it seemed as if you were saying that men and women agree most cases they would prefer the woman have the kids, right?
Physical custody, majority
Physical
physical
custody,
custody, yes,
right?
and
Now,
that's just simply based
yeah,
on what is proven.
yeah. Now, it's not proven that that is the preference. It's proven that that's what happens, right? Now we don't know why that's what happens,
And
but
you made a claim as to why. I did
no,
not
no,
make a
no.
claim as
I
to why.
just gave examples. I didn't say
No,
why it
you
happened.
said I'm removing context, and I'm telling you, you're adding context that you can't
No,
prove.
I was just giving you examples because it's a spectrum. It could be a ton of reasons why, right? I never pinpointed one reason for it, right? And I'm not, but you were saying that, oh no, men think the kid should go with the mom too. And we don't know that, is all I'm saying.
But just because you can't prove the context don't mean the context can't be accepted. So like for example, just follow me, pretty intellectual. I think a woman by the name Pearl made a claim on here that 2/3 of black males had a felony or something. Did I get the stat right? Or convicted of a felony by the age of something, whatever such and such. But she didn't compensate for the fact that there's false convictions. She didn't compensate for the fact that there's a movement called the Innocence Project that is unraveling past investigations, and they're actually pulling people out of prison from being wrongly convicted. And that's only the percentage of the files that they have access to. So that statement doesn't hold any weight unless you can prove that 100% of those investigations were justified and wasn't falsely filed. You get what I'm saying? We can't prove it or disprove that 2/3 don't have it, but we can add the context that a lot of it is negligent data because of the information that's lacking. You get what I'm
Yes, you're
saying?
explaining systemic racism, and a correlative to systemic racism and white supremacy would be patriarchy, which would put women at the disadvantage, not men. So that's where your argument falls on its face again, because the fact of the matter is the system's not
It
set
has
up to
nothing to do with
us.
race.
The system is set up to prefer you. You talked about the Innocence Project, that is quite literally something that is set up to combat. When you talk about exoneration rates for black men, that is literally systemic racism, sir. Under white
No,
supremacy, that
that's
is
not
what
what I
you
was
just brought up
negating.
in.
That wasn't what I was getting. I would say it had nothing to do with, I'm not race, correction. I mean, it had nothing to do with gender. It all
I
has,
know it doesn't have anything to do
okay,
with
then so
gender,
why
but
did
what
you
I'm
have to
saying
bring
is a
patriarchy and women into
correlative
it?
to white supremacy would be patriarchy. It would not be, women do not hold a system of power that could disadvantage men in the criminal justice system. In the family court system. Everything in the family court system was quite literally created by other men. Every
Well,
single
regardless
law
of,
that y'all are upset
yeah,
about was created by other men. So therefore, there's nothing to advantage women in that system. You cannot compare the Innocence Project, which is related to white
we
supremacy,
can.
to
Pretty,
the
are you saying
family
Yeah.
court system, because that is under a construct of patriarchy that is favoring men.
so? You're saying
Just,
patriarchy doesn't harm men?
just,
It literally like white people crying
okay, well,
reverse. That's what
just because it was created by the patriarchy doesn't mean that it can't favor women.
You're saying patriarchy can't harm men? Pretty.
I'm not saying so I don't like that you keep
I'm just
creating
asking.
these false equivalencies.
It was a question. I
Patriarchy
didn't think. Yeah.
absolutely harms men.
Well,
Absolutely.
so here's an example of how patriarchy has
But it's
created a
created by
system.
men.
Here's a example of how the patriarchy benefits women in an unfair way. A woman gets to walk in, and depending on what state she lives in, and I think in most states, I would have to fact check. She could walk into, she can point out any man that she think impregnated him, and he would be liable for child support until he can prove that that he is not a father by a DNA signature. And sometimes that won't even work unless he can find the biological father to absolve himself from responsibility, child support responsibilities. That is unfair to men. And that cannot happen in women because a maternity test is by default automatic. Until you enforce mandatory DNA tests, that is when you can level the playing field. Do you agree that that's unfair? That a woman can just name drop anybody and he have arrears. You agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Y'all should take that up with the men.
So now I proved that
You're
twice.
trying really hard to do. Did you just do a soundtrack?
It was effortless. I think that was effortless.
That was weird.
You made a claim and it took me less than 30 seconds to
No,
debunk.
it's not a debunking. That's not
You
debunking
said that
it.
under a patriarchy,
I agreed to it
under a
before you started
patriarchy, a man
talking.
cannot
No,
create a
sir.
system that is unfair.
I agreed
for
to
men.
it before you started
Okay.
talking.
All right, I
said
got it.
the
Okay.
patriarchy absolutely harms men. So you proved a point that I already agreed to, and then you played a loud sound to prove what? Like, I agreed to it before you started talking, sir. I said the patriarchy absolutely harms men. I said that
How many times
verbatim
you gonna say
before
that?
you started talking.